My name is Jacob Krumholtz, and I'm here today with my co-host and brother, Luke Krumholtz. On today's episode of the Weekly Crumb, we're joined by Sam Fuld. Sam Fuld is general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. Before stepping into front office work, Sam played 8 seasons in the MLB. Thank you for joining us today, Sam.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on.
So, Sam, we know you from a camp that you run every year in Florida. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
You bet. As you guys are well aware, this was our 13th annual Type 1 Diabetes Sports Camp that we've held down in the Tampa area. I started it as a member of the Tampa Bay Rays when I played in Tampa. And it's sort of born out of a collaborative process between myself and the University of South Florida's Diabetes Center and the Florida Diabetes Camps. And the idea was just to put on a weekend camp that provided opportunity to play a bunch of different sports for type 1 diabetic kids, wide range of ages, as you know, ages 7 to 17. And the idea was just to sort of provide inspiration to kids. We were really fortunate from the very beginning to have really accomplished type 1 diabetic athletes. Former tennis pros, former NFL athletes, some guest appearances from current Tampa Bay Lightning skaters with type 1 diabetes, and just a whole host of really quality athletes and quality humans who have dealt with type 1 diabetes for a long time. And the idea was to just, bring role models to the surface for any type 1 diabetic athlete or kid who wanted to join the camp and create that sort of fraternity or community that I think is really important in managing the disease. So it never thought that we would necessarily get to 13 years, but it was such a meaningful experience and event for everybody that was involved. It just has felt like it's too important to give up. And here we are.
Definitely. So, I have type 1 diabetes. Can you just talk about how type 1 diabetes has kind of personally affected you?
Sure. I was diagnosed at age 10, had no history of type 1 diabetes in my family, so I had no idea what that meant for me. I think I had an uncle who had a cat with type 1 diabetes, and that was the closest I had gotten to that lifestyle. So needless to say, rocked my world and totally changed my life. But so I went from just a normal 10-year-old to someone who, this was 30 years ago. So this was the way that the disease was managed was a lot different than it is today. But it meant, regular finger pricks to check my blood sugar throughout the day. It meant regular insulin injections. And it meant a lot of mental focus on regulating my blood glucose levels, dealing with the highs, the lows, the roller coaster ride that we go through on a daily basis. But I saw what the future held for me, and I took it on as a challenge, and I just didn't want it to get in the way of any of my goals that I had, whether they be athletic goals, academic goals, etc. So I was fortunate to have a lot of support from the beginning, and I think used it as a bit more motivation to try to achieve everything that I wanted to achieve in life.
So, how has some of like the volunteering and foundation work you do kind of shaped you as a person, like as an individual?
Sure. I mean, I think you deal with something like this that can be so challenging. It's really fulfilling to be able to spin what is a frustrating and challenging disease into something really positive. So it's the camp itself and the other efforts that I've made to just connect with the type 1 diabetes community. It brings you joy in many ways, and it brings education. I learn from campers, counselors every year that I have the camp. There's always little hacks, little nuances to making your management a little bit easier. So it has shaped me in many positive ways, and I think that I say this all the time, but I encourage anybody with type 1 diabetes to seek out ways to connect and to try to make others' lives better, because it really is meaningful. And The weekend that we have our camp is one of, if not the most fulfilling, gratifying experiences of the year for me.
It really is, being able to connect with people, with shared experiences is something that's been life-changing for me as a person with type 1 diabetes. That camp, that calendar is marked every first weekend in February for the camp. It's really meant so much to me and our family.
Yeah.
It's Luke,
I mean, even as someone without type 1, I have just being able to see Jake thrive there, being able to just learn more about it myself, and just to be able to share my experiences with it has just been it's been incredible. And just we love seeing what this camp has done, and we love to continue to help shape what this camp is, because it means so much to us. And we want that to mean the same to someone else.
Yeah, no doubt. And this, it's a team effort. It's whether you're a sibling, a parent, a friend.
exactly.
There's a lot of what we call type 3 diabetics out there that are really influential, and all the kind of positive support and education awareness that we can spread to the non-type 1 diabetes community, I think, is so important. And I think that's a really cool thing that we do at our camp, is bring in siblings like yourself and make them feel as big a part of the process as we can, without a little bit of needling on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always great. Just I will every year I sort of make it a goal of mine to just help in whatever way I can, just because I know I don't have necessarily the shared experience, but I do want to get word out, and just I do enjoy learning about it.
Yeah.
And it's always sort of fascinated me, just sort of how you've been able to have an incredible athletic career with type 1, and just sort of how were you able to manage all of that in the MLB for as long as you have been?
It was a challenge for sure, and it was a goal of mine to always just sort of stay as disciplined and focused as possible. Because, like I said, I just wanted to prove to people that I could, you know, achieve my goals, whatever that, play at the highest possible level that I could as a baseball player, without type 1 diabetes stopping me. So when you have that kind of motivation, it certainly makes the management more easy. It makes the finger pricks every hour, every couple hours, a little bit more tolerable. It makes the lows frustrating, it makes the highs frustrating. But I was fortunate enough to always find a way to sort of stay on track and not let those frustrations build too much. And you know, there are silver linings to having the disease. Like it taught me discipline and took my discipline and work ethic to another level. And it's nice to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. There weren't too many, we talk about the stigma attached to type 1 diabetes. The reality is I have a lot of positive support, but every now and then you hear some rumblings. Oh, I don't think he's going to be able to manage a disease and play every day at the highest level. Or, one scout from an unnamed organization said, well, we liked you, but we were afraid to draft you because you had type 1 diabetes. Like that was gold to me.
Yeah.
I took that and ran with it.
I took that
And
personally.
yeah, yes, exactly. So I, in retrospect, in the moment, didn't love it, but in retrospect, appreciate those comments.
So at Metuchen High School, there's a number of people who aspire to be in the situation you were in, and playing in the major league, playing in the MLB, playing in Major League Baseball. What was life like as a professional baseball player?
Well, hard to sum up in a couple sentences. I mean, it was a dream come true. It really was, and I sometimes lost that perspective. But I was pretty, I had pretty reasonable expectations for me, even though it was a goal of mine to play, as long as possible and at the highest level as possible. I also felt like the odds were stacked against me in many ways. Not necessarily with having type 1 diabetes, but just being, sort of an undersized, relatively unathletic kid from New Hampshire. it was it was uh it was really special, extra special, I think, to be able to play at the highest level, and to play for 13 years professionally. I don't think in my wildest dreams I would have ever done that. So yeah, there was a lot of failure, as there tends to be in the game of baseball, but I was, most of the time, was able to appreciate how cool it was to just play a sport for a living, and that's a product of a lot of hard work and the product of a lot of great people that helped me get there.
Definitely. So do you have any like favorite memories you look back on from your time in the league? Like what was like hardest pitcher you had to hit against, your most nervous moment, fondest memory?
Oh man, well, fondest memory and hardest pitcher that I had to face are two totally different things. In case you're wondering, um, dude, I think about facing Felix Hernandez a lot in my career, which, especially playing out in Oakland, got a chance to. Hold on one second. Yeah, I had a chance to face him a number of times, and I batted leadoff for Tampa the day that he threw a perfect game against us, and I think that sort of summed up how dominant he was. Never more dominant than that day, but to be in a weird way, it's sort of an honor to be able to say that I faced him 3 times as a leadoff hitter, which you don't get to say unless you throw a perfecto. Um, so yeah, and I think I had so many cool moments. I mean, it's what comes to mind is like getting that first major league hit for me. I think every major league hitter and in the past, pitchers who get that first hit under their belt, I think is it's a special moment for me. It came a year and a half into my major league career. I was called up in 2007 in the month of September and didn't get many at bats, but had a big goose egg under the hit column for that whole offseason, and the next year didn't get called up to the big leagues. It was in the minor leagues the whole year. About midway through the 2009 season, I was finally able to get that monkey off my back and got a base hit or a double in Pittsburgh. And yeah, I kind of remember it like it was yesterday, even if it was 15 years ago now. So that moment was great. It's some very cool team moments, like the game 162 in 2011, where we fought back the last game of the year to beat the Yankees to sort of cap a really historic comeback in the month of September and get into the playoffs that year. That was tough to beat. We had Johnny Damon on that team, and I remember talking to him like that night after the game and asked him like, how does this stack up against the 2004 breaking the curse as a member of the Boston Red Sox? And he's probably just a little bit in the moment at the time, but he said this is probably better. It's just the way we did it was so cool. Such an underdog story, and yeah, plenty of other great memories, but those are a couple that stand out.
So now obviously your playing time has come to an end. You're the general manager of the Phillies. Did you always know you wanted to go into front office work? Can you tell us a bit about the process of getting into that field?
Sure. Yeah, I think it was something I had thought about quite a bit as a player, but you're so laser focused on being the best player that you can be that you want to stay positive and stay sort of focused on reaching your goals as a player. But that said, I mean, I was a non-prospect from the time I became a professional, and I knew that at any moment my playing career could come to an end. So I think it would have been different if I would have been a first-round draft pick and knew that like my career was going to be at least whatever X number of years. For me, it wasn't the case. So I was often thinking about, in some ways, what life would look like after hanging up the spikes. So I think the front office always intrigued me. I always saw it as like a pretty, intellectually curious path to go down. And yeah, I think as the time came to make a decision on what life would look like once retiring, it's pretty clear to me that going down the front office path was something I wanted to explore, and it's been a really cool 7 years since I made that decision.
Yeah. So what was your background? You obviously played in baseball. What was your other background for getting into the front office? Stats, analytics.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, the sort of data side of the game was always intriguing to me. I was sort of just a kid who liked math, and I loved the intersection of math and statistics with the game of baseball. Those are two of my loves in life, dating back to age 5 or 6. So, as the role of analytics continued to progress in the game of baseball, just felt like that was a really compelling marriage that I wanted to pursue. And so, I was an economics major in college, and those experiences, those classes didn't necessarily like directly apply to what I'm doing right now, but it gives you the sort of critical thinking, problem solving tools to be able to, execute this job, at least in some capacities. And then, yeah, as soon as I got exposed to the front office with the Phillies, I just sort of tried to soak up as much information as possible and figure out where my strengths and weaknesses lied, and just tried to keep my head down and soak in as much information as possible.
So you were in Oakland during the Billy Bean years? Were you like, was that, do you have any stories with that sort of in that side? I'm sure there's some.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my first year in Oakland, we were a really good team. For much of the year, we had best record in baseball, and it was really neat to be a part of that. I think it was a run of some really good years where Oakland didn't necessarily have the resources that a lot of big market teams have, but they were still able to be really competitive. And so it was just neat to, as a player, you don't necessarily get a chance to look behind the curtain too much, but it was neat to be around that group and try to engage in conversation whenever you could. Most of my conversations with Billy, I think, happened like during the game. I'd be coming off the bench, and mid game, I'd go up to the weight room and like get my legs loose and just get my body ready to pinch run or pinch hit or play defense off the bench. And Billy was often in there, and he was watching the game. But I'd say like the Moneyball movie was not too far off from the truth, where he was like sort of watching, but also like maybe a little tepid with how locked in he was with the game, just because I think he cared so much. So it was neat to be able to engage with him in that, maybe small-ish weight room that the Oakland Coliseum had for us.
Yeah. So there are always going to be some people at the high school that might want to work in like professional sports and that stuff. How would someone go about working in the industry of like baseball, go about doing that?
It's a super competitive industry, no doubt. So I think finding ways to show your passion, I think, is where I would start. And I know that's a bit of a cliche thing to say, but I think if there are parts of the game that are particularly intriguing to you or anybody else who's looking to get their foot in the door, I would encourage people to really pursue that little slice of the pie and come up with ideas, however novel, innovative, out of left field they may be. I think it's let your passion for the game and your desire to help make an organization better shine in however whatever way you can, and that can be through a independent research that you've done. It can be through a just sort of writing your thoughts down on paper. Whatever your skill set sort of lends itself towards, just go all in, because you have to be passionate about this game. You have to love this game. You have to be obsessed with it to get into the industry. It's so competitive, and but yeah, I think there are ways to showcase that passion through your resume, through an interview process, and be patient, be persistent. It's a really competitive industry with only 30 teams and a lot of people out there who want to find their way into Major League and onto a Major League Baseball organization.
So, it's spring training now. You're joining us here today from Florida, from the Phillies complex in Florida. It's obviously a big time, for players, starting the season, and then also for fans. We're also excited. We're excited to see how this season gets going. What is it what does spring training look like for you in the general manager position?
Well, it's a nice time. There's oftentimes some sort of relative uh, freedom that you get. This year, well, particularly in the last few years, it feels like every spring training's been different. Between having a COVID season and a labor shutdown, and last year with the WBC, we've really sort of navigated different environments the last 4 years in spring training. But once your roster is more set and you sort of like focus your attention towards just the games, I think it's a nice time to just sit back and enjoy watching some baseball, which for us baseball crazy people, waiting 4 months is a long time. 4 or 5 months can be a long time. So it's an opportunity to build relationships with staff, whether they're new or existing. Same thing with players. And I'd say the pace of it tends to be a little bit slower and a little less stressful than once the bell rings on in late March or early April. But yeah, there's inevitably things that pop up that I think are hard to predict. But yeah, come with this role.
Yeah. So can we get sort of like a rundown of the Phillies spring training so far, the good, the bad, the ugly, what's going on in Clearwater?
Yeah, we've had some good performances. A lot of our returning relievers have really come out the gates firing. Like, you expect some level of sort of ease with which a player, especially an established major league player, operates throughout the course of February and March. But our guys have come out firing, and Jose Alvarado, Jeff Hoffman, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Ryan Kirkring, Matt Strom. They've all been really good and really exciting to watch. And we've had some good performances from guys that maybe lie a little bit more under the radar and are competing for a spot on the team. Some of them 21-year-olds, some of them 31-year-olds, and everything in between. But that's the cool part about spring training, is there's always somebody who kind of pops up as having made some real legitimate improvements over the course of the off season. And we've had a few of those guys. We've had we're only about 10 games in, so it's, you don't want to rush to judgment too quickly, but we feel like a hockey team. We've had a lot of ties, which is not my favorite, but it's part of spring training. So anyway, the priority is staying healthy and getting reps in for everybody, and knock on wood, we've done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah. Just what would you be looking for from, just say, any of your players? From what do you expect from like your stars, and what do you also expect from maybe like new guys,
your prospects? Like, what are some intangibles too that you're looking for in spring training to maybe help a young 21-year-old sneak on a roster spot here or there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I think when it comes to pitching, you're always just sort of looking for how their stuff has changed. Velocity, break on a certain pitch, the ability to locate it where they want. All those things I think are at the core of how we evaluate players. So when somebody comes in throwing 2 miles an hour harder than they did last year, that can be really exciting.
Yeah.
On the offensive side, it's same concept where you're sort of breaking down guys by their tools. So whether that be run speed, exit velocities, decisions that they make in the box, swinging at good pitches, things like that. All of that is super important. And I think, some of those tools carry more signal than others. Some need more sort of sample, more quantity to, stabilize and become meaningful when it comes to evaluating them. But yeah, we're in a position organizationally where we're in it to win it. So it is in many ways a meritocracy, and that's pretty cool, because you are evaluating guys thinking about how that player may help you, regardless of whether they're on the 40-man roster or not.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned it a little bit that you're in it to win it this year. what should we expect to see from the Phillies this season here in 2024?
Well, hopefully a lot of wins. I mean, it's an exciting team. Like it's been really cool to see how the city has rallied around us, and I think it's a product of how much enjoyment we play the game with, and it's a lot of superstars that also are fun to watch. So hopefully it's more wins, and hopefully we can get back into the playoffs and make another deep run. But yeah, it's been cool to see how our fan base has really wrapped their arms around this group of players, and it speaks a lot to who they are as humans, and to our coaching staff for letting them be humans and be fun to watch play.
So a few hours ago, we were in class. I think our friend Ike was in Spanish, and he texted me that there was some breaking news from the Phillies front office, and you signed Zach Wheeler to a pretty hefty 3-year deal. What's it like in the front office on kind of like events like that? Like, what's the process like? What's going on throughout the war room, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm sure you know, those things don't happen overnight. So it takes time, a lot of conversation internally, oftentimes a lot of back and forth with players' representation. And, you have really high level players like Zach. I think you owe it to yourself as an organization to consider how long they might become a part of the organization. And for Zach, he was a top priority for us, going into his last year of his existing contract. And we feel good. Dave said in the press conference today, we feel like there's not anybody else on the planet that you'd rather hand the ball to in a big game. And so he's earned every bit of the contract, and it's been a huge part of obviously what we've done. And hopefully he can continue with that positive progression. It's been really cool to see.
So that's really exciting. Like having that opportunity. It's got to be really exciting too. Just as a baseball fan, those situations where you're signing star players. We hate to say it, we're Yankees fans here at the Weekly Crumb. There's some division in the media room, but anytime something like that happens, it's always exciting as a fan base. And it's got to be probably a little scarier on your end, but it's got to be exciting around the clubhouse.
Super exciting, yeah. I mean, it was an exciting morning. A lot of smiles around the clubhouse. I think a lot of smiles around the city of Philadelphia, and it's really cool to see Zach kind of take steps forward in his career, and the arrow's ticking up, even though he's not necessarily in the traditional prime of his career. He just seems to continue to get better and has a real desire to change as he changes and find ways to get guys out and adapt to how the league adapts to him, and give us a lot of confidence in giving him a few more years in his contract.
So exactly. So here in the MHS Media Club, in the Bulldog Report, we're all baseball fans. We've had some pretty big underlying questions, thrown around the media room, and we thought, no better person to ask than someone in the business, the GM of the Phillies. So we're gonna ask maybe less Phillies, maybe less you-oriented questions, but some big baseball questions here.
Okay, I'm ready for it, I think.
And we're not necessarily sure how much you can answer to this one, but
this has been hotly debated.
This will settle some debates for us.
We've been looking through the fan graphs, Zips projections, and everything, and so we just wanted to ask you this one.
Who do you think is finishing with a higher record, the Yankees or the Mets?
Or the Phillies? Beat both of them.
Well, I like, yeah. Oh man, I like our team. I like our chances. They're you can never sleep on those two teams for sure. They've got a ton of talent. But I will not insert myself into that conversation. I'll let you guys hash that one out at school. So I'll just say that I like our team.
So this is another one. This one might be a little controversial. There's been several conversations about this, several posts on the John Boy Media social media pages. thoughts on the new jerseys?
Thoughts on the New Jerseys. Oh man. I like the state of New Jersey. You guys are in New Jersey right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly like have not. They haven't caught my attention too much. I've certainly seen the articles. I've heard the banter around the clubhouse. But yeah, I feel like I am hopefully like holding my attention to the quality of play and not the quality of the uniform. So I'll give you another non-answer like that.
Okay. Now this one I think you should be able to answer. And obviously here on the Weekly Crumb, we're big golfers too. Who's the best golfer in the Phillies organization?
Yeah, so pretty timely question. We had a golf event 2 weeks, week and a half ago. Right before our game start, we held just sort of a casual, informal event at a local country club, and we had just signed Whit Merrifield like 2 days ago, and so our pitching coach Caleb Coffin was like sort of like the lowest handicap going into the event, and then Whit enters the picture and just like totally trumped Caleb and was easily the best golfer, I'd say, like going into the event, and I was not in his group, but by all accounts, held up that reputation pretty well. He's about a scratch. I think he may have entered as a +1, but yeah, he's pretty darn good, and he's smooth, and it's just I don't know. I hate
that make the game of golf look so easy.
It's
How it works for me.
it's always a great sport to play. We love talking with baseball players about it. All the baseball players here at Metuchen High School love golf. They all hit that 300-yard drive, but it's also 300 yards right. That big slice. I
I can relate to that. Not the 300 part, but
I can see Kyle Schwarber hitting at 350, but
Yeah.
150, 350 yards left. I can see that.
yeah, no, there are a lot of guys, as you might imagine, that just pound the ball. Yeah, the pitchers tend to be the ones who have a little bit more time to actually practice their short game, so they have a little bit more of a well-rounded game than the position players. But we have some talented position player golfers too, like Whit and JT, and I played with Garrett Stubbs. He's pretty darn good, and yeah, there's a lot of golf talent out there.
So, and now, we'll kind of finish it off with a big Philly question. Where's the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia?
Man, guess I can go on record. I've heard I'd heard a lot of great things about Angelo's, which is in South Philly, and it's like I think I've actually had their pizza before, but just about a month ago before heading down here, got my first Angelo's Philly cheesesteak experience, and yeah, it was everything that it was hyped up to be. So I have a lot of great places, a lot of great cheesesteak places that I've been to and would highly recommend, but Angelo's I think leapt to the top.
So
Yeah.
So Angelo's, we'll check it out when we come visit. That'll be great. So
Cash only, and takeout only. Just as a heads up.
got it. Well, yeah, actually, that's good to know in 2024. Thank you so much for joining us today. It really it means a lot, getting to talk some baseball. We're all itching to get out. Baseball teams started some of their spring practices themselves. Should be exciting to see the Phillies this year.
Yeah.
That means a lot coming from two pretty diehard Yankees fans. So
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to be on with you guys, and yeah, with all the support and help that you guys have been in with our camps, I can put your baseball allegiances to the side and happily join you today.